Truth, logic, action, power. It's the GreggHoush show here on New Revolutionary Radio. From the Leonard School in Malden, Massachusetts, Gregg and company are here to bring a sense of ethics to your news. Whether it's politics, activism, or current events, we always seek to inform and never to deceive. Let's start the show.
Hello, and welcome to episode 58 of the GreggHoush show. Joining me tonight is our co-host, Mac, and our random special guest, Anna.
Hey, everybody.
How's it going?
So tonight we, of course, have another million things to talk about as the news never slows down anymore.
In fact, it seems to just accelerate.
Somehow. I still have no idea how that is possible, but, tonight we are going to start with not Trump.
Yeah, something not exclusively local, but
happening all over the country,
specifically relevant locally.
So there's a group here in the New England area, really centered around Boston, called Resist Marxism. And they believe themselves to be patriotic Americans who are fighting against the evil Marxists. In reality, they are white supremacist neo-Nazis who are, fighting against good, basically. They are Hitler-loving, Confederate flag-owning Nazis. And no matter how much people said that, they denied it. But
these are, of course, the people that were behind the, free speech rallies and rally for the Republic and all that shit. Also, the people that were behind Unite the Right at Charlottesville, but, not as this group.
Yeah, the same people, though. And,
yes.
They kept denying it. But, in the last week, their internal chat logs have been leaked to the internet, and we've all gotten to see them. And
no, that's so sad for them.
Right?
Surprisingly, their internal chat is full of Hitler memes and talking about, anyone in Senate or the House that might have dual citizenship with Israel as all kinds of certain dirty words.
And, saying things like, Resist Marxism has the potential to be a true non-optics Nazi organization. In other words, maybe someday we won't have to hide it.
So the Nazis have been actually exposed as Nazis. It's a miracle.
Shockingly enough. Who would have thought, right?
Indeed. It was always weird going to these events and standing there talking to them, mostly, yelling at them for their stupidity. But I've had many conversations with these people from, the other side of basically the police line, because the police were surrounding them, making sure people didn't attack them.
Didn't they have some bikes they were using as barricades last time?
Yeah, they were using bikes. But, the conversations were always around the fact that, well, you personally might not be a Nazi. The person I'm talking to, you are currently claiming to not be a Nazi, and maybe you're not. But then that guy who actually has, that's a Prussian war helmet on, he's a Nazi, and he's showing it, and he doesn't care that we know he's a Nazi, and he's on your side. And I was always arguing with them that, if your side is full of Nazis, then you might not claim to be one, but you gotta wonder why all the Nazis think you're on their side.
I've recently remembered an important phrase that I think all of us need to use more of, and it's Nazi sympathizer.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know what? Literally no one who isn't a Nazi or a Nazi sympathizer cares which side of that distinction you're on.
I know, but it's just...
I know, it's a valid term.
Where it is a very indisputable descriptor for some of these people, and you can sit there arguing with them all day about whether or not they have a swastika themselves. But if you're defending the guy with a swastika, guess what, buddy? You're sympathizing.
I agree with you 100% on that. I just feel that it's important to point out that there's no actual moral distinction there. That's just a minor quibble in terminology.
I would argue that there is a moral distinction because Nazis need to be shot and Nazi sympathizers need to be jailed and have their heads shaved.
All right, I'm okay with that.
This was a thing that happened to the women who, slept with the Nazis in occupied France.
Very specifically.
Yeah. So that's that. You can go check out the logs. They are funny. You can pretty much just search for "resist Marxism" chat logs, and they'll pop right up. I mean, funny in terms of sad. Sad funny. Like, we knew this was coming. We knew who they were, and here's the proof.
You know what's not sad? When these fucks kill themselves.
It's true.
It's not. I
Don't feel bad.
I know I should, but no, whatever. There's this guy, Andrew Dodson, who was ID'd at Charlottesville. He was wearing an Arkansas engineering shirt. And, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was the one that it took a little while for them to correctly identify. Like, there was an assistant professor or something that they briefly thought might have been him. And that guy was like, whoa, no, I was nowhere near that. Mm-mm. And then, they eventually figured it out. And I guess turns out this guy killed himself a couple months back now. So,
yeah, nothing of value was lost.
Nope.
Indeed. So, I always hate, just outright professing that people might just want to end their lives. But I would be okay if everyone in Resist Marxism did that.
Really, just Nazis in general. And I'm not going to feel bad if Nazi sympathizers do.
Yeah.
Right. So, the EPA banned actual journalists
like the Associated Press and CNN
from going to an event because, well, I guess they think that's the right move to make. So they blocked news organizations from attending Tuesday's Washington meeting on harmful water contaminants. And of course, this is because Scott Pruitt is doing nothing but undoing regulations and making things worse. And he doesn't want people reporting on what a piece of shit he is.
Yeah.
And it's just, another one of those things that you usually only see in authoritarian regimes and dictatorships, in military leaders doing this. But here we are under Trump's wonderful leadership.
I thought this was America.
Indeed.
Now, the hilarious part is they didn't even have the courage of their convictions. They walked it back a couple hours later when there was a big outcry from the press.
When they realized how dumb they were being.
And then gave the world's most pathetic attempt at an excuse. See, they actually had one of the reporters get removed by security. And so as the EPA spokesperson claimed that the problem was space constraints. They said that it was simply an issue of the room reaching capacity, which reporters were aware of prior to the event.
No.
No.
It's the EPA. They can book bigger rooms if that's the case.
Yeah,
also, if you're pretending that you can only accommodate 10 news outlets and one of them isn't the AP,
also go fuck yourself?
Yeah, also go fuck yourself. That is pretty much where we are on that one.
Now we are talking about North Korea.
Oh, yeah.
Trump has decided to cancel the summit with Kim Jong-un.
Now, did he cancel the commemorative coins for the summit?
He did not.
This cool. Can we at least get them on sale now?
So here's the thing. They're only available for pre-order right now.
Ooh.
But they're going to put them out whether the summit happens or not, which it's not happening. They're now available. Sale price, $20 when they were $25. These
may be a collector's item someday for memorabilia regarding the impeachment of Donald Trump.
Much like Donald Trump's presidential coin.
Yeah.
They are terrible.
Of course.
From every design aspect possible. They actually added some extra chins on Kim Jong-un.
Wow.
They did. There's pictures of it. It's insane. I don't know why they did this.
I think you do.
Well,
Donald Trump probably personally.
Here's the thing why I don't understand it, because the Trump silhouette is not very flattering either.
Fair enough.
It's such a bad coin, and you can get it for only $20.
So this follows Mike Pence actually just saying some really stupid things on TV.
Basically the same stuff John Bolton had previously.
And then, of course, Kim Jong-un and friends all responding.
Oh, we had, I want to do the actual line from the vice minister in the North Korean foreign ministry who put out the statement. Because Choi Son-hui actually, part of the quote was, quote, "As a person involved in the U.S. affairs, I cannot suppress my surprise at such ignorant and stupid remarks gushing out from the mouth of the U.S. vice president," end quote. She also called him, what was it, a political dummy?
Yeah, a political dummy. She's not wrong. I mean,
that's what makes it funny. Is that
at the same time, North Korea says far worse stuff.
Oh yeah.
By far. But they're doing that whole backed into a corner, small little animal kind of a thing where they attack. And so I understand them saying it. We don't need to.
Also, it's just very. I mean, of course they're lashing out after. Basically, they bring up, hey, maybe we'll do the Libya model, which was, well, when Libya gave up on going for nukes, we got their government overthrown, and now all the people that were in charge there are dead.
Yeah.
I wonder why North Korea might take exception to the suggestion that we would do the same there.
Are you saying that Kim Jong-un is not interested in getting stabbed repeatedly in the ass?
In fact, yeah, I am suggesting that. Okay. Shockingly enough. Turns out, studies show most people are not supportive of getting stabbed repeatedly in the ass.
Of course, this announcement comes in typical Trump fashion with our important ally in the space, specifically the president of South Korea, Moon Jae-in, not having any idea this was coming.
Even though literally had just returned from a meeting in Washington with Trump.
This really sounds like you guys think that Trump plans or just doesn't
No.
We're saying this is like all the entirely predictable outcome at this point. Like these are just the details that you should know, even though you probably saw them coming.
Now South Korea is attempting to fix this problem, and we'll see what they come up with there. I still do think in some way summit happens, so we'll just have to see how that goes. But North Korea also invited a bunch of journalists to roam freely, basically, in the country for the first time ever. And by that, go to a specific location, the nuclear test site that they were dismantling, but without someone traveling with them the whole way, without handlers telling them what they could look at and couldn't look at, without people sitting in every room with them, listening to every conversation they had, like the most freedom Western journalists have had in that country for a while.
And they specifically brought in like mostly TV journalists because they wanted to show off video footage of them destroying the test site, which is, not the first time they've done something like that, but, shows that they like really wanted everyone to see that. Like they were up front, like, yep, we want you to see this, but in the meantime, you guys have fun. Look around, whatever.
Yeah. So
go enjoy our something.
With
misery.
That one,
our misery.
With that one test site down, that doesn't mean they can't build another. And in the end, they would have had to have built another to keep going anyways, as that one had partially collapsed.
Yes, and but there was some issues where there may have been some radiological contamination that made it a really bad idea to try to continue using that one. We're not 100% sure on how bad it was, but yeah.
So the NFL. Let's talk sports, and by that I mean Roger Goodell being a complete idiot and the owners coming along for the ride.
Yeah.
So the NFL has instituted a new rule which says any players on the field for the national anthem must stand. However, they have left the caveat in that, you can stay in the locker room if you don't want to stand.
Yeah, all you have to do is not be seen by anyone, and you can protest however you'd like.
Yeah. So the Players Association has, of course, spoken up in the in typical union sense, saying you were supposed to talk to us when you do big stuff like this, and you didn't. What's going on? And so I really want to see what players do on this, because basically all they're facing is a fine. They're not facing
and it's the team
being
that
kicked
faces
out.
The fine.
And some of the teams are saying they might do something here.
I feel really bad saying anything good about the Jets. I just want to say that ahead of this here. So the Jets co-owner Christopher Johnson has said that the team is going to foot any fines that they get related to, any players kneeling. He actually spoke out about this in March. He said, I just think that trying to forcibly get the players to shut up is a fantastically bad idea. Right on the money there.
Yeah.
And, he doesn't want players getting singled out for these fines, so he's going to eat them. And honestly, I think every owner should be doing that. But let's face it, these are the people who voted in favor of this in the first place. So
Yeah.
Indeed. At least the majority of them.
Yep.
So that'll be fun to watch. We are going to get to see how many players do it anyways, and then see the repercussions as the season starts. I mean, I think if the players had any balls, spine, anything, the association itself would call for every player to actually kneel on the field and see what the league does about it.
Yeah, sounds about right. And of course, because of the time we live in, Donald Trump once again managed to demonstrate what an awful human being he is in regards to this by suggesting that not only did the owners do the right thing by requiring players on the field to stand, but he said, quote, "You have to stand proudly for the national anthem or you shouldn't be playing. You shouldn't be there. Maybe you shouldn't be in the country." Yeah, that's right. He suggested that, U.S. citizens with no other citizenship should maybe be deported from the U.S. for, not standing for the anthem while they're on the field.
I feel like I've really failed you by not coming up with a Starship Troopers joke ahead of this one. I'm sorry.
I mean, that's less...
God damn it. I didn't even get the name of the movie right. Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
I'm just not on the ball. We started real late tonight, so I'm getting dumb.
No worries. So now we're on to the most wonderful Mike Pompeo.
Oh, this is a fun one, too.
He admits Russian interference.
Again.
He basically says that the intelligence committees were right, that their reports are spot on. He did not admit it easily. It took a lot of questions to get him to finally say yes. But he got there. He got there in the end.
And not only did he admit that the Russians interfered, but that they specifically interfered on behalf of Trump, which, for a Trump appointee is a pretty damning admission. There was also the part where he insisted that, the administration will take appropriate countermeasures to fight what he called continued efforts by Russia to meddle in the voting this year, and even said that the U.S. hasn't yet found a way to create effective deterrence. So he admitted, yeah, they've been doing this. They did it to specifically do that. We still don't have a way of fighting back against it, but we're working on it.
I mean, they don't have a way of fighting back against it because they haven't really been working on that or admitting it until recently.
Yes, this is true. Meanwhile, of course, the same week earlier, the Homeland Security Secretary, Kirstjen Nielsen, was asked about that, basically the exact same topic, and said, quote, "I don't believe I've seen that conclusion that the specific intent was to help President Trump win. I'm not aware of that. But I do generally have no reason to doubt any intelligence assessment," end quote. Of course, this is the same person that not so long ago said that she didn't know whether Norway was predominantly white.
No.
Yeah, this was back when there was the whole shithole countries thing by Trump, and she was being questioned by the Senate because she was in that meeting, and Patrick Leahy was like, "So you think maybe he was talking about Norway? Is that one of the shithole countries?" She was like, "Nah." He was like, "Well, you think Norway is maybe mostly white?" She was. I'm paraphrasing a bit there, but that was the gist of things. And her actual response was, quote, "I actually do not know that, sir, but I imagine that is the case," end quote. So she apparently, her job position is just playing dumb from what we can tell.
The dumb is just physically painful sometimes.
Right.
So beyond those two idiots, we also have more fun with Manafort. And it was revealed this week that Geoffroy, a former business partner of Manafort,
and his ex-son-in-law,
has cut a plea deal with the Justice Department that requires him to cooperate with other criminal probes, which of course means more charges for Manafort, I believe, and probably some more interesting revelations about Trump.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And it also means that since Yochai was quite close to Manafort, being his son-in-law and business partner and all, they may get a whole bunch of information that is the kind of stuff they would have normally gotten from, say, Manafort flipping. It also turns out that, he actually made the agreement finalized early this year. So we're hearing about this,
He's been talking for months.
And we know that he's already agreed to ongoing cooperation with federal and state prosecutors and has spoken with officials from the special counsel's office and the New York Attorney General's office, as well as the U.S. Attorney's office in Los Angeles, which he lived in Los Angeles. So you can guess why he was involved in that one.
It feels so weird to be cheerleading the FBI.
Right. And I mean, hey, almost no one manages to be on the wrong side every time.
So we follow up more Manafort news with my favorite news of the week, which is Evgeny Friedman, who could turn a lot of fun evidence on Michael Cohen's dealings, has flipped and has gone from facing years in jail and $500,000 in fraud charges and all this other fun stuff to facing a $50,000 charge with no actual jail time because he's made a plea deal to sing like a bird.
Oh, yeah.
And sure, he's going to pay the $500,000 back, but he can afford that. He is the taxi king of New York City.
Yes. He gets to tell them everything, which is hilarious because, immediately after all of that came out, Michael Cohen tweeted, "I'm one of thousands of medallion owners who entrust management companies to operate my medallions, and according to the rules of the NYC Taxi and Limousine Commission, Gene Friedman and I are not partners and have never been partners in this business or any other. # media wrong again." Which the reason that's funny is because just back in February, in a phone call with TPM, Friedman said that he'd been managing medallions for Cohen for more than 16 years and that he didn't want to comment on a hot issue, but that, Michael Cohen was his longtime friend and they talk daily sometimes. And, I help him out as much as I can. I also have a business relationship, but we're friends. We have dinner with his wife.
Because, of course, he only just manages a few medallions, as Cohen says.
Barely know each other, not even business associates, really.
Really, you can't go into politics unless you have a terrible memory. That's just mandatory. We all know that.
Of course.
And Michael Cohen's no good, very bad new reality continues.
Oh, yeah.
As it does every week now.
Well, we got two entirely separate ones this week. It was good stuff.
Yeah, the BBC reported Wednesday that Michael Cohen received a secret payment of at least $400,000 to fix talks between Ukrainian president and Donald Trump. The payment was arranged by intermediaries acting for Ukraine's leader, Petro Poroshenko. And the meeting took place at the White House. And shortly after the Ukrainian president returned home, his country's anti-corruption agency stopped its investigation into Trump's former campaign manager, Paul Manafort.
You may remember that hitting the news briefly last summer at the time, because it was kind of a minor headline when everyone was like, but just a few months ago, you were releasing all that shit about, the Black Ledger and all that. And now you're like, no, you stopped asking for him to be extradited? What? Well, now we know what happened there. Turns out that this meeting got arranged and paid for. And then a week after that meeting, the Ukraine Anti-Corruption Bureau announced that it was no longer investigating him, transferred the investigation to the state prosecutor's office, and said that Mr. Manafort hadn't signed the ledger acknowledging receipt of the money. And since Manafort was an American and the law only allowed the Bureau to investigate Ukrainians, I guess we can't do anything. And then the state prosecutor's office basically got told by their higher-ups, well, we're not telling you to kill that case, but we're going to make sure that case never goes anywhere.
Indeed. The prosecutor in charge of the case last week said, quote, "There was never a direct order to stop the Manafort inquiry, but from the way our investigation has progressed, it's clear that our superiors are trying to create obstacles."
We also heard that several sources in Ukraine said that Mr. Poroshenko himself had authorized the leak about the Black Ledger in the first place, thinking that, Hillary Clinton was sure to win and that it would, look good for them. And then, Trump won and they went, shit. How do we make nice?
And that was their move. Following that one up, BuzzFeed News, who still surprises me every day that they actually do journalism these days instead of, just funny lists.
Not even just journalism, but like
funny.
Actual long form journalism at times. This was and this report that they laid out, it was quite extensive and put all the pieces out there quite thoroughly.
Yeah, it covered how Michael Cohen and Felix Sater worked throughout the presidential campaign to negotiate deals to build a Trump Tower in Moscow.
You know, that thing that Donald Trump has been trying to do since 1987. And yeah, that whole time when they were saying that was dead as of like January 2016, turns out it continued for another 6 months.
At least. That's what we know now.
Yeah, what we know is that, according to the people involved who are, basically all notorious liars, so I don't know why we would trust them on this. But hey, from what we know, the deal was being worked on up until July 26, 2016, which is the day that Trump tweeted out, "For the record, I have 0 investments in Russia."
Indeed. So we learn a whole lot more about that, and that they lied entirely about the timing of that and when it was over and all the other fun stuff.
That they were actively communicating with members of the Russian government to make it happen, and talking about how maybe, they want you to meet with maybe either Putin or Medvedev.
You think sometimes that they just throw out so many outrageous things that you just get exhausted by the time you get to the thing that should actually get him impeached? Because that right there is the damning thing, that shit. But I'm so exhausted because, you've screwed up the talks and your coins are terrible and you're yelling about the NFL. Like, I can't have any energy for, you want to put up a hotel. I've run out.
Well, I mean, yeah, you may find some energy for some of the other stories in a bit, but...
Why is there more?
Because the really impressive part is that Donald Trump doesn't actually seem to do any work, and yet he still managed to produce all of this news. He spends like 8 hours a day golfing and like fucking around on Twitter and watching Fox and Friends rather than doing any actual work. And yet we have all of this shit.
There's a really good return on investment if
true.
like what he's trying to do is cause trouble, because he can just sit there on the shitter. I hate everybody. I ruined this thing. Like, not even checking with his people before canceling events or just saying something terrible about immigrants or actual U.S. born citizens or really anything. Like, it takes him no effort to blow things up.
That's very true. And, if he had some semblance of impulse control or some kind of thing that didn't suggest, an incredible degree of narcissism, I might actually suspect that there was some degree of intentionality in that.
He's not smart enough for this to be intentional.
No, he literally does not. I do not think he has the capacity to intentionally make that decision.
The only question there is whether he ever had that capacity, and this is Alzheimer's, whatever, kicking in that's making him stupider, or he has always been this dumb.
I mean, the evidence seems to suggest he's always been extremely narcissistic and bad at impulse control, but there does seem to be some possibility that he's actually gotten somewhat worse.
Well,
although that might just
hope.
be the higher profile.
We can hope. But beyond Trump Sr. here, Trump Jr. has been caught outright lying to Congress.
Which you might remember is kind of a serious crime, even if you're not under oath.
So on Saturday, it was revealed that 3 months before the 2016 election, Donald Trump Jr. met at Trump Tower with Eric Prince and George Nader, who was acting as a representative for Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan and Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud.
That is, the crown princes of Saudi Arabia and the UAE, not respectively.
As you can tell by the Al Saud at the end of his name. And at the meeting, Nader told Donald Trump Jr. that the princes who led Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates were eager to help his father win the election for U.S. president, and offered the services of another attendee, their social media specialist, Joel Zamel, who, of course, later on received $2 million for seemingly his efforts.
Yeah.
And, of course, that flies right in the face of a series of questions that happened where, in front of Congress, the exchange happened as such. Question: we've talked a lot about Russia, so I have some broader questions about other foreign governments. Did other foreign governments offer or provide assistance to the Trump campaign? Trump Jr.: none that I'm aware of. Q: did other foreign nationals offer to provide assistance to the Trump campaign? Trump Jr.: no. Now, of course, we have proof here that he had a meeting where people specifically offered and then actually did help.
Yeah.
And more interesting than all of that is at the end of it all, Mr. Zemel's company made partnership with Cambridge Analytica in a joint bid to win business from other U.S. government agencies and clients after the election. So they're just all, having fun with each other, all working together afterward, all friends.
There's so much more to this story because it gets so much better. Zemel's companies previously had done work for the UAE's royal court, of course, but also for two of the Russian oligarchs tied to all of this, Oleg Deripaska and Dmitry Rybolovlev. So he was tied in there. Then we know that in December 2016, the month after Trump won the election, the Crown Prince of the UAE secretly flew to the U.S. and met with Trump officials without informing the Obama administration first. That was the month before the Seychelles meeting with Eric Prince, the UAE's Crown Prince, and Dmitriev, the Russian fund manager that's associated with, or very closely tied to Putin and works or is in charge of a fund that is sanctioned by the U.S. specifically. And in fact, on top of all of that, we know that Elliot Broidy, anyone remember that name? The deputy chairman of the RNC Finance Committee and the Michael Cohen client.
No,
blah, blah,
nobody
blah.
remembers
Right?
these people's names. It's too much.
It's too many.
It's too many.
Him and George Nader, the guy, one of the ones that's now cooperating with the special counsel, pitched themselves to the crown princes of Saudi Arabia and the UAE as a back channel of the White House, which they proceeded to work on for the next year. And then we now have emails, thanks to the Associated Press, they got, well, not only emails, but hundreds of pages of emails along with a whole bunch of other interviews. And they got all the work summaries and contracting documents and stuff saying that, well, in December 2017, in return for pushing anti-Qatar policies at the highest level of America's government, those two expected huge consulting contracts from Saudi Arabia and the UAE. And of course, neither of them were registered as foreign agents while they were doing this. And the emails were very clear that they were, in fact, acting as foreign agents. They even called the crown princes the clients. Then in January, Broidy reported that he'd gotten the first $36 million. That was actually... they had a delay in the wire transfer that Nader went off to go deal with. And it was the flight back from that was the one where the FBI agents intercepted him in the first place and brought him in to talk. Yep. So all of that's tied closely together. And, in case all of that isn't enough, we now know that the special counsel's team worked with the Israeli police to seize the computers of one of Mr. Zemel's companies to get information off of it. So clearly the special counsel's once again way ahead of us on all this. Now, one thing that I thought was
amazing. This is one of those times where rare moments in life where I think we actually need Glenn Beck with his chalkboards and his pin boards to tie all these people together. Like, we really need him standing up there with two just big cork boards, like the size of classroom chalkboards, just putting them all together and showing you that, like, there's these groupings around, like, Dmitry and just these groupings around people where they all seem to be connected.
We have a blank wall right behind you.
That's
here.
true. We could make the board and look like crazy people. We need
look
lots
like
of red string.
I mean,
all of these revelations this week, especially the stuff with like the two crown princes being in on this together and like actively offering assistance and all this, brings up just something that was just previously kind of a random weird coincidence thing where you're like, I wonder if there's more to it now. Because it turns out that last November, a new record was set for the highest auction price of any painting ever. Leonardo da Vinci's, one of his handful of paintings, Salvator Mundi, sold for $450 million at auction. Mind you, the previous record was $179 million. So this was like triple that. Now, you might be wondering, why am I talking about art auctions, right? Well, the buyer was a Saudi prince, Badr bin Abdullah bin Mohammed bin Farhan al Saud, who's a close associate and old friend of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. But interestingly enough, this wasn't about Saudi Arabia. It turns out that he was actually acting as an agent of Abu Dhabi, the UAE, and specifically the portion of the UAE run by the Crown Prince of the UAE. He purchased this painting on their behalf, on behalf of the Abu Dhabi Department of Culture and Tourism, to buy this painting at this price so that they could display it in the Abu Dhabi Louvre. Because, why not, right? Now, that still doesn't really say much until you find out that it turns out the person who sold the painting was Dmitry Rybolovlev, who bought it for $127 million back in 2013.
Only a few years earlier.
Yeah. Mind you, that's the same Russian billionaire who paid Donald Trump $95 million for a Palm Beach mansion 4 miles from Mar-a-Lago in 2008, 4 years after Trump acquired it for $41 million, and then proceeded to never live in it, visit it only once ever, and then in 2016, tear down the fucking mansion and parcel out the lot to resell. So yeah, but what an odd set of coincidences.
Some strange Russian, billionaire who has close ties to Trump, having hundreds of millions of dollars funneled to him from Abu Dhabi for some reason.
I mean, who knows? Maybe it is just an odd coincidence, but boy, is that an odd set of coincidences, huh?
Too many of those these days.
Now, also fun this week, because we already mentioned the Seychelles, because that was relevant there. But, Kirill Dmitriev decided that Putin is no longer really trying to hide things. He gave an interview to ABC News just today, Thursday, actually, about the whole Eric Prince Seychelles meeting. And when asked specifically about it, he refused to agree with Eric Prince's account about it being a casual chance encounter over beer. And then when they were like, well, are you saying that you specifically went and planned to have this meeting with him? He gave kind of this smile and refused to answer the question and instead was like, I'm a big believer in restoring the U.S.-Russia relationship. I think it's the responsibility of any credible, thoughtful person to start restoring relations between two great countries when they're at such low points. So basically, we will continue to talk with different U.S. businesses, U.S. people, and by the way, nothing restricts us from doing so, from U.S. partners who invest with us with the hope of having good dialogue to restore relations between Russia and the U.S.
Basically just saying, I want to help keep these countries from going to war, which of course we know is definitely not anything he actually cares about.
Right.
Good times. Good times. It continues to be more fun over there in the Seychelles. I mean, it was already a lot of fun over there, good beaches, but now here we are.
Lots of random coincidental meetings between billionaires and high-level officials of various foreign governments, So
some media people filed various suits against the government in attempts to get information out of the special counsel's investigation. And all they really got was, told what I think most of us already know, that this is still an investigation, that sure, there's been indictments. That doesn't mean the investigation's over. There's still possibly more people to indict. We're still going.
One of the most interesting lines from the special counsel's filing in response to this, though, was they said, quote, an indictment does not end an overall investigation, for example, when a defendant is potentially involved with activities with other subjects or targets. The probability of a continuing investigation post-indictment grows exponentially when the search targets are linked to other persons of interest by ties to a single organization, common associates, or coordinated activities. Which, if that isn't the, hey,
they're all connected to Trump.
And boy, that sounds like exactly the sort of language that someone that was thinking heavily about RICO charges would be saying.
Indeed, and RICO charges are not fun.
And racketeering and corrupt organization is, what are those? What are the main predicate charges there? Money laundering, all those sorts of things. Oh, what has Mueller been charging everyone with? Money laundering, campaign finance violations. It sounds almost like a trend.
Good times. RICO charges coming down for these people.
That is my guess, at least.
As someone who's faced RICO charges, those are scary. especially when that paperwork says the United States of America versus you, and it's all about what they think you did. So these people are probably shaking right now after hearing all of that fun stuff.
I mean, that is implying they have any amount of sense, which
all
is
of the
unfair.
evidence seems to.
Well, being that one of these people is Roger Stone, you are right. There's no sense on their side. I mean, there's all kinds of news about him and his wonderful best friend, Randy Credico, who are now kind of yelling at each other. I mean, you know, I have found myself not caring about Roger Stone anymore. He is such a non-issue here. He is so off to the side that whatever happens to him, but it's not gonna change anything for anyone else. Everyone else is in so much deeper.
Oh yeah.
That Roger Stone can go away right now, and I'd be happier simply because it's less news that we have to deal with.
Fair enough.
So in another wonderful, real American way to look at the world, right after the Trump administration got in, they started looking for excuses to remove the temporary protected status from Haitians.
Yeah, after the 2010 earthquake, of course, they got temporary protected status because, well, they had a whole lot of refugees that needed a place to stay for a while they tried to rebuild Haiti. It turns out that, the rebuilding Haiti part didn't go so well, and so they kind of needed to continue that whole temporary protected status. But instead of, looking at the evidence and trying to come to a reasonable determination based off of existing policy and guidelines and all that, the then newly named chief of the Office of Policy and Strategy at U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, Kathy Newbell-Kovaric, started asking questions like, how many Haitians with temporary protected status were on public benefits, or how many were convicted of quote-unquote crimes of any kind, and how many had been in the country unlawfully before being granted TPS.
Basically fishing for any way they could spin the story to take temporary protected status away from Haitians.
Which is entirely in line with their policy, which is where you hold up that card with the different skin tones.
The paper bag test.
Oh, yeah. Because the TPS status for a lot of people is definitely under attack, but they're going after Haitians specifically, and
there was clearly no justification here except we were looking for an excuse to get rid of the Haitian temporary protected status.
No, and everything about the immigration policy of this administration has been, let's get rid of the brown people. Let's stop more brown people coming in. That's disgusting.
But they aren't racists, they say.
Clearly, they are not racist. They just are extremely focused on race and the war against white people.
They have their black friend. They put him in over at Health Services.
Housing and Urban Development.
Housing and Urban Development,
No, see, they put their black friend in charge of housing and
urban development. Yeah. Well, where else would he fit in, obviously?
He's a medical doctor.
It's okay. He doesn't remember that either.
Every time I think about that, I think about when you're sitting in, a taxi or you're at some 7-Eleven and the person tells you, yeah, so I was a surgeon in my country.
Yeah.
It's like, man, what is wrong with these people?
What isn't wrong with these people?
Right. So, all of that fun stuff going on, and, stories out of the EPA and everything else, we find out that a big study's been done about climate change and about the Paris Agreement's targets. And the Paris Agreement targets would save $30 trillion in damages if they were implemented.
And that's their aggressive target of 1.5 degrees of centigrade of warming, as opposed to 2 degrees of centigrade, 2 degrees centigrade. So it's literally only that $30 trillion of cumulative benefit is just over that half a degree difference. And the estimated cost of meeting that target is $500 billion over the next 30 years. An order of magnitude less.
So spending $500 billion saves $30 trillion and maybe the planet.
And it's actually worse than that, or better than that, I guess, because if we hit 3 degrees of warming instead of 2, that would cost the globe an additional 5 to 10% of GDP. $30 trillion represented 3% of GDP.
I'm confused, guys. I'm confused because I thought it was environmentalist versus business interests. And this sounds like doing the right thing for the environment might be positive for our business
Well,
interests.
I mean, I guess that depends
positive
on what...
for specific businesses, ones that, aren't necessarily rich enough at this point in any kind of unified way to lobby strongly, say, the fossil fuel industries currently do.
I forgot because we don't have, a market that actually works for everybody. We have a market that works for the people who are already winning.
Which, I mean, the hilarious thing about the last few lines here is the fact that just this week, a bunch of the automakers sent a letter to Congress saying, hey, climate change is real. You should do something about that. Like, even the auto industry isn't enough to matter here. It's just the fossil fuel. Congress just doesn't give a shit, apparently, about, anyone else.
Just want to get reelected and don't care.
Yeah.
Ugh. The thing that is just killing me today, and I mean, it shouldn't be that big of a deal, but just there's those people that you love their work, you love everything they seemingly have done, that you publicly know about them. And
I know where this is going. And
then you find out that they aren't the hero you thought they were. And Morgan Freeman is now caught up in Me Too. And it's not just one person, and it's not just he said an off comment. No, it's at least 8 people. And it's touching, it's commenting, it's harassing, it's attempting to lift someone's skirt on set in front of cameras when they did not want it. It's everything you don't want to see on a Hollywood set that seems to have been so normal for so long. The voice of God himself, Morgan Freeman, is caught up in it and was doing it all.
Well, I mean, so far, I don't think any of the people who've accused him have said that he's sexually assaulted, in a significant way.
The worst thing is, in terms of actual touch, they say he's done is lifting up skirts and things like that, but he hasn't actually, pulled a Trump and grabbed him by the pussy.
Yeah, no, he did.
Most of it is touching the lower back, touching the shoulders, but also many comments about women's bodies, about what they're wearing, up to and including asking if they were wearing panties today. So it's still very inappropriate, very much sexual harassment,
and to the point where,
not Weinstein, not Cosby levels, but still more than bad enough to deserve the Me Too movement coming after him.
And it turns out that it was, yet again, a very open secret.
This is another one of those well-known ones. When CNN started reaching out to people, they didn't even get to finish asking the question of who this person might be. And they tried so hard to talk to executives at studios and producers and directors out there in Hollywood in ways where they wouldn't know who they were asking about, and everyone just assumed they were asking about Morgan Freeman because everyone already knew that he was not only probably next, but that totally describes Morgan Freeman. He did all that.
Yeah.
And nobody said or did anything about it until now. And I honestly think just because of how revered he was for all of his work and how even loved by millennials, the youth, everyone, I mean, all age groups seem to love this man. That's why it probably took this long for that to be one of the ones that became public.
Yeah, I mean, most of the women said that, they didn't report his behavior at all because they were worried for their jobs, which, has been the story all the way through, but especially with somebody with a career like Morgan Freeman. Of course, you're going to have that concern.
Yeah.
So the only funny, sad thing from this in both ways is that Vancouver next week was going to be switching on Morgan Freeman's voice for all of their public announcements and subway work. So if you were riding the subway and anything was announced, like your next stop or slowdowns, anything, it was going to be Morgan Freeman's voice. It was all recorded, done, ready to go. And now they've had to cancel that, and they're rolling back to the sounds that they are currently using and not putting his voice on everything because of this. And I got to tell you, before this, with what I thought about Morgan Freeman, I would have wanted to go and seen that in person. And now, who cares?
Yeah. That's about where we
You're
are.
done. You're done.
Dead to us all.
So I still hold out hope that there's at least a few good people out there. I believe if Keanu or Tom Hanks or even someone like, say, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson goes down for this stuff, it's over and we should revolt. Because obviously there's no one good left in this world. But there we go. Morgan Freeman caught up in it too. And it was another, air quotes here, open secret that everyone knew and no one was talking about. Good times, let me tell you.
Kind of the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. So another good one from this week is, there's a subreddit, a section of the website Reddit there, _Donald. And when you go to /r/the_Donald, it is very quickly identifiable as a support group for Donald Trump. People who love him, who think he does no wrong. A fair amount of trolls doing that just because they think it's funny to be that way. And there was a secondary one that did not have the underscore in it. So it was just the Donald as one word, no space, no underscore. And the moderator disappeared for a couple weeks. And
everyone knows what happens when the mods are asleep.
And the moderator was gone. And Donald Glover fans took over the Donald and flooded it just with tons of Donald Glover images, pictures, facts, stories. And the moderator showed back up a couple days ago, late at night, to find his subreddit destroyed, his inbox full of people begging to be moderators of this wonderful Donald Glover subreddit. So much that he gave up. And the new description of the site basically says, post whatever you want. I don't care if it's Trump or Glover. Just leave me alone, please. So I guess he must have been contacted a lot.
Maybe a little.
And that's just another one of those funny ones from this week.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of replacing all instances of Donald Trump with Donald Glover, up to and including who's in the White House.
I'm okay with, at least I'm more okay with that
America.
than the status quo. Although, I think my favorite of the funny stories this week came from a bit of an unexpected source. Michael Flynn Jr., who, despite the fact that his father, who, pleaded guilty and is cooperating with investigators in order to keep his son out of prison, decided to tweet despite that. He tweeted out this cryptic message about how you're all going down. You know who you are. Mark my word. And then he penned that tweet. But then a couple days later, he retweeted a tweet from Jack Posobiec, one of those alt-right douche waffles, who had tweeted out, quote, "It's time to look at articles of impeachment for Barack Obama, #Spygate." And then added his own message, #Impeach Obama.
Do they know how impeachment works?
I don't think they do.
I don't think they know what that word means.
You keep using that word.
Right?
I don't think.
The worst part is other people have boosted this by being like, yeah, impeach Obama.
Do they think impeaching is some kind of physical punishment or something?
Maybe.
Maybe they think they can get him out of the history books so they can go back to nothing but white people instead of the combo breaker.
Yeah, that might be their hope.
It has been another amazing week here of just 5 or 6 new revelations that all should be impeachable.
Oh, yeah. But we're now starting to get more of the bits and pieces that tie them together. Eventually, it'll all just be one giant web of impeachable offenses.
So let's keep watching the prosecutor who we want to get this right, which still feels so weird to me. I don't like supporting a prosecutor or the
weird.
FBI.
Yeah.
I know.
This guy.
But this is also the guy that took down Enron and the Gambino crime family.
Right.
So, he has a history of every once in a while going for the big ones that really deserved it.
While we're waiting, and there's not a lot we can do to support Mueller and what he's doing there. This is 2018. It's an election cycle. Everybody needs to do their midterms.
Yes.
You probably should be looking at when your primaries are,
They're all running now.
Yep.
In Massachusetts, ours doesn't run until September.
Yeah,
but,
that's the case in several states.
But
where
there's
they're
some
late.
states that are going.
Some have already happened.
Yep.
The first black woman running for governor that actually won the primary and is now going to be the candidate is happening.
Congratulations to Georgia on that one.
Yep.
I've seen a couple things from her. She looks amazing. So
Yes.
I hope that goes through.
Sadly, the DCCC has been defeating all the progressives with their own establishment candidates and using their power and money to crush actual Democratic progressives with industry cronies who will do the same thing that all of the current people in Congress have been doing, which is nothing.
Here's the thing, though. Primaries have very low turnout. If you show up, you can actually have an influence. So if you don't like that, the DCCC is doing this, show up for the primaries.
Also, to be fair, while the DCCC has won a majority of those so far, they've actually lost almost as many as they've won in terms of the ones against actual progressives this cycle. So they don't have the nearly the record of completely crushing it that they usually do.
Right.
So instead, they're going to, work on deprioritizing those races and not putting funding or resources into them in the general election.
Yeah, they just give up on them as unwinnable.
It's just not a rate. We have to concentrate. We have to concentrate. You wouldn't be so strapped for cash and time if you didn't do this thing.
We need a 50-state strategy, unless progressives win, in which case we need to concentrate our resources on the races we can win.
Yeah, so again, all I've got to say about that is get out there and vote these people out and put progressives in. To do that, you need to be helping with the primaries. I would also say that I in no way want anyone to rehack the DCCCC again and put out any more info. And I definitely don't want dirt on any of them at all. But it would be funny if, just more info about their lies and horrible mismanagement of the Democratic Party and its future, were made public. I would laugh.
I would also think it'd be funny if that stuff came out about the Republicans.
In the Republicans' case, I think it's less about that and more about, criminal wrongdoing that they've been concealing and well aware of.
Yeah. Oh, there was one other thing. We were talking about Nazis earlier, and if you're in the Boston area and you want to yell at some Nazis, you're in luck. They are showing up at Boston Common again on June 2nd. I am sure there will be an active counter-protest and active police presence. And
if you are there, I would recommend you get signs on a relatively large board printed out of different screen captures of their chat logs of things they said, just to kind of shove it in their face that they are Nazis and that they admit to it.
I am unfortunately going to miss this one, so you got to make sure you bring more people to make up for my loud.
Indeed. We'll be there.
Oh, yeah.
All right, everyone. That is episode 58. Thanks for being there with us.
Thank you for listening. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GreggHoush Show and on Instagram at GreggHoush. If you like what you've heard and want to be a part of it, check out patreon.com/GreggHoush Show. In exchange for funding our programming, you gain access to exclusive content such as uncut editions of our podcast. We have new episodes every Thursday night. We hope you listen in. The GreggHoush Show was created by GreggHoush, executive produced by co-host Eric Gowrays, and co-hosted by Kayla Avery. Other contributors include producer and writer Anna Jeffrey, co-host producer David McGuffin, and writer-engineer Robert Tortora. Theme music for this show was produced and recorded by Geneva de Colbert. Our interns include co-host Casey McLaughlin, writer-engineer Alec Greeny, writer Maddie Locicero, and associate producer, writer, and announcer William Kennedy. You're listening to New Revolutionary Radio, your call to action.